I want you to picture a scene. It is 4:55 p.m. on a Friday. You are in this incredibly high-stakes meeting.
Oh, the absolute worst time for a meeting.
Right, your absolute worst. The project launches Monday morning, and your lead developer just casually announces that a critical file is completely corrupted.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I can feel the room temperature dropping 10 degrees right now.
Exactly. The project manager is turning this shade of purple that suggests an imminent explosion. The junior designer looks like they might actually cry. Panic isn't just in the air, it is practically vibrating.
We have all been in that exact room. It's that precise, terrifying moment when the whole system just breaks.
It is. But then I want you to watch what happens next in this scenario. There is one person at the table. They haven't really said much all meeting.
Usually the quiet one.
Yep. But while everyone else is spiraling, either looking for someone to blame or literally looking for the exit, this person they shift.
They don't panic.
No, they don't yell, they don't freak out. They quietly ask maybe 3 specific questions. They slide a laptop over to show a backup plan they made just in case. And suddenly, the temperature just normalizes, the panic evaporates.
And the wildest part of that whole scenario, 10 minutes later, everyone leaves that room thinking, wow, we really pulled that together.
Totally.
Nobody realizes that one specific person just absorbed the entire shock of that crisis right into their own nervous system.
And that is exactly who we are talking about today, the unseen architects of stability. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are digging into a fascinating document from the Max Energy ME80 personality system. We are looking at a specific profile with the code AFSN.
Also known as the gentle holder.
The gentle holder, which, it sounds lovely, almost soft. But as I was reading through this report, I realized that soft is it's the wrong word entirely.
It really is.
Structural feels way more accurate to me.
Absolutely. If you go into this thinking gentle holder means a pushover or someone who's just, nice, you are missing the entire mechanical complexity of this human being. We are talking about a high-performance shock absorber here.
Right.
And our mission for this deep dive is to understand what that actually costs the person doing the absorbing.
So let's look at our source material. We are working off the Max Energy ME80 report for the AFSN profile. But for listeners who aren't familiar with the ME80 system, can you give us the quick elevator pitch? Because it looks really different from a standard Myers-Briggs or an Enneagram test.
It is very different. Most personality tests measure traits, like are you loud, are you quiet, are you super organized? Max Energy measures energy flow.
Energy flow.
Yeah, it looks at the mechanics of how you process information, how you make decisions, and crucially, where your battery drains or recharges. It's like looking at the internal wiring diagram of a person rather than just looking at the paint job.
Okay, so we are looking at the wiring diagram of the AFSN today. Let's start with that identity. The code is AFSN, but the title is the gentle holder. And the report has this core declaration right at the top. It says, gently receives pressure, then takes responsibility to mend what is broken.
That is the thesis statement right there. Receives pressure.
It sounds a little passive, though, right? Like a punching bag.
It's not passive at all, actually. It's physics.
Me.
Think about a really high-end suspension system on an off-road vehicle. When that tire hits a massive rock, the suspension receives that pressure. It compresses.
Oh, I see.
It takes the violence of the impact into itself so that the chassis, the passengers, the cargo, they don't feel the jolt.
So the AFSN is literally the suspension system of their family or their company?
Exactly. When chaos hits, whether it's a fighting couple at a dinner party or a massive server crash at a startup, most people bounce that energy back out. They scream, they argue, they panic.
The fight or flight thing.
Yeah. But the AFSN does something completely counterintuitive. They catch the energy, they absorb it, and then they immediately start calculating how to stabilize the vehicle.
The report uses 2 phrases to describe this mechanism: continuous assumption and meticulous supplementing, which honestly sounds like a job description for a martyr.
It can definitely feel like that to that. Continuous assumption means they are constantly scanning the environment for things that are about to fall, and they just assume responsibility for catching them. They do not wait to be asked.
They just do it. And meticulous supplementing.
That's the patching work.
Yeah.
If you are telling a story at a party and you completely blank on a name, the AFSN quietly whispers it to you. If a project plan has a huge glaring gap, they just fill it. They're constantly supplementing the reality around them to make it whole, to make it smooth.
So their philosophy, the thing driving them, isn't necessarily, oh, I want everyone to like me. The report says their control mechanism is the global view. What exactly does that mean in practice?
It means they prioritize the system over the individual. even over themselves. They are looking at the room and saying, if I don't step in right now, this argument is going to destroy the team's morale for a solid month.
Wow.
Yeah, they see the long-term instability coming from a mile away, and they act to prevent the spiral.
It's almost like they have this compulsion for homeostasis, like they just need the world to be level.
Precisely. Chaos is physically painful for them to sit in. Stabilizing it is actually how they regain their own comfort.
But here's the thing about shock absorbers, right? Eventually, they wear out. You cannot just keep taking hits for other people without a serious cost.
And that is the crux of this entire profile. The report really highlights that they carry excessive responsibility, often completely quietly, on their own shoulders. But to understand why they do it and how they even have the capacity to do it in the first place, we need to kind of pop the hood.
Right, the inner workings.
Yeah, we need to look at the energy matrix the ME80 system describes.
Okay, let's get into the gears here. The report breaks this down into 3 specific layers: IP, IQ, and EQ. Now, usually when I see IQ and EQ, I automatically think intelligence quotient and emotional quotient. But Max Energy uses these terms slightly differently, don't they?
They do. Don't think of them as how smart you are or how emotionally intelligent you are. Think of them as components of an engine. The IP is your inner value, your core drive. The IQ is your activation layer, how fast your radar is spinning. And the EQ is your decision layer, how you actually process the data.
Got it. So let's look at the AFSN's engine. Starting with the core, the IP, the inner value layer. The report says this is direction sense activated.
Imagine a ship at sea. The IP is the captain holding the compass. Even though the gentle holder seems really soft and accommodating on the outside, deep down they have this rigid, powerful sense of direction. They know exactly where the ship should be going.
So they aren't just reacting randomly to problems as they pop up?
No, not at all. They intervene because they see the ship veering off course. That gentleness is actually wrapped around a very strong inner drive. They care deeply about the destination, whether that destination is a happy family vacation or a successful product launch.
Right.
If they didn't care about the direction, they wouldn't even bother fixing the mess.
Okay, moving up to the IQ layer, the emotional activation layer. This is where I got a little confused reading the report. It describes the AFSN's IQ layer as intuition and speed judgment. Speed. Because when I think of this personality type, I tend to think slow and steady, methodical.
That is the biggest misconception about the gentle holder by far. And it is exactly why people underestimate them. Their external demeanor is very calm, but their internal processing speed is lightning fast.
Really?
Yes, this IQ layer is pure intuition. They walk into a room, and within maybe 3 seconds, they have scanned the micro-expressions of every single person. They've noticed the coffee stain on the carpet, realized the boss is super stressed, and completely predicted that the meeting is going to go south.
So their radar is just spinning at 100 miles per hour.
Constantly. They are hyper-perceptive. While everyone else is still trying to figure out what is for lunch, the AFSN has already mapped out all the emotional landmines in the conversation.
That sounds exhausting. So if they are so fast, why do they seem so calm? Why don't they look frantic with all that data coming in?
That brings us to the EQ layer, the decision calculation layer. The report defines this as emotional bearing and stability.
To go back to your ship analogy for a second, if the IP is the captain and the IQ is the radar, what is the EQ?
The EQ is the keel. It is that massive heavy weight at the very bottom of the ship that keeps it from flipping over in a storm. The AFSN has this really unique combination: high-speed perception from the IQ plus high stability endurance from the EQ.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they see the panic instantly, but they actually have the emotional mass to hold it without reacting.
That is a rare combo, isn't it? Because usually people who are super sensitive and fast are also highly reactive. They explode or they panic. Or the people who are super stable are kind of oblivious. They don't even see the problem until it hits them in the face.
Exactly. The AFSN is basically cursed with seeing everything, but gifted with the strength to endure it. They absorb the data, process the emotion, and then and only then do they move to the manifestation layer.
Which the report says is impact, action, and manifestation, so they are doers.
They don't just sit there and empathize, they actually fix it. They're the ones who get up and close the window when it's too loud outside. They rewrite the broken slide deck at midnight. Their energy manifests as tangible, real-world correction.
This leads perfectly into a specific inner trait the report calls catch first, handle later. I highlighted this because it felt so visceral. Catch first, handle later.
It is a total triage mentality. Imagine a priceless vase falls off a high shelf.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The AFSN dives to catch it. They hit the hardwood floor. Maybe they scrape their elbow badly. Maybe they twist an ankle. But they catch the vase. In that exact moment, they do not ask, who knocked this over?
Right.
They do not ask, am I hurt? The only thing that matters in the universe is the vase did not break.
They prioritize the object or the situation, the system, entirely over their own physical or emotional condition.
Right. Handle later refers to their own needs. They will deal with the scraped elbow later. They will deal with their anger at whoever bumped the shelf later. Right now, the absolute priority is stability.
The report notes that they habitually defer their personal burden. That sounds sustainable for, what, a day, maybe a week? But over a lifetime?
It is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
Because the later and handle later often just never comes. They just keep catching vases.
Mm-hmm.
And because they are so good at it, because they literally make it look effortless, nobody else realizes they are covered in bruises.
That connects directly to what the report calls their shadow blind spot, because every superpower has a kryptonite. For the AFSN, it is boundless responsibility.
Assumption lacking boundaries. That is the trap right there. Because they have this amazing capacity to fix things, they start to subconsciously believe they're responsible for fixing everything.
The report says their risk lies in automatically assuming unclear responsibilities.
Let's go back to that work scenario from the beginning. A project is failing. The roles are super vague. Nobody knows whose fault it actually is. A healthy, boundary-setting person might say, well, that is not in my job description. Good luck.
Yeah, not my circus, not my monkeys.
Exactly. But the AFSN sees the vacuum and just steps right in. I'll handle it.
They fill the void because they can't stand the instability.
They do. But here is the real kicker. If they fail. If the project was actually mathematically impossible to save, the report says they critique themselves first.
Wait, they blame themselves for failing to fix a problem they didn't even create?
Yes. And they ignore objective reality to do it. They don't say the timeline was impossible and the budget was zero. They say, I wasn't good enough. I should have worked harder. This causes a silent, massive accumulation of shame and fatigue. They are drowning in responsibility, but because they are the gentle holder, they do it completely quietly.
And that invisibility is a huge part of the problem, right? Because the report discusses their social relationships under the heading, gentle yet unseen.
It is the mask of harmony.
I bet every single listener knows someone exactly like this. Or maybe is someone like this? What is the classic catchphrase? It's fine.
It's fine. I've got it. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. They use harmony as a literal defense mechanism.
Yeah.
They desperately want the relationship to be smooth, so they just swallow their own complaints.
But the report points out a really sad consequence of this dynamic. It says others get used to relying on them and overlook the weight the general holder is quietly bearing.
It creates a terrible dependency loop. Think about it. If you have a friend who is an AFSN, you eventually stop checking on them. Why? Because they always seem totally fine.
Yeah, they're the strong one.
Right. You dump your problems on them, they absorb it, they give you great advice, and you leave feeling so much better. You never even think to ask, hey, how is your load?
Because the gentle holder has fundamentally trained you to believe they don't even have a load.
Exactly. They have successfully architected a perfectly stable world for you, while their own internal world might be completely crumbling.
That is, wow, that is heavy. But I want to pivot for a second. Because if you can manage that burnout risk, if you can actually put up some guardrails, this personality type sounds incredibly valuable, especially in a professional setting.
Oh, they're the MVP of any organization.
Mm-hmm.
In the business section, the report explicitly calls their core value system support and repair capacity.
Which is just fancy HR speak for the person who keeps the company from imploding on a Tuesday.
Pretty much. The report says they convert problems into executable correction pathways. Just think about that phrasing for a second. A lot of people can spot a problem. Hey, the website is down.
Right.
But the AFSN spots the problem, diagnoses the root cause, and then builds an entirely new process to ensure it never, ever happens again, all while calmly talking down the angry customer on the phone.
So where do they actually thrive? If I am a hiring manager or if I am an AFSN listening to this looking for a career change, what fields does the report recommend?
There are a few key areas where they just shine. First is project coordination and support. Anything where the job is to see mend gaps. Operations managers, chiefs of staff, the people who sit right between departments and make sure they actually talk to each other.
That makes total sense. They are the glue.
Second is client relationships. Because of that EQ stability we talked about, they build massive long-term trust because they actually deliver. When an AFSN says, I'll take care of it, the client just intuitively knows it is done.
The report also mentions risk buffering and aftermath management. Now, aftermath management sounds like a euphemism for cleaning up absolute disasters.
It definitely can be.
Hmm.
But think about crisis PR. Think about an HR director during a messy merger or a layoff. You need someone who can stand right in the middle of a firestorm, absorb all that heat, and still make rational structural decisions. The AFSN is always the calmest person in the room when the building is burning.
And finally, it lists organizational stability.
This is the architect part of their personality. They're incredibly good at writing the playbook. They see exactly where the onboarding process is broken. They see where the communication creates bottlenecks. They naturally want to fix the underlying structure so that the chaos doesn't even happen in the first place.
We're coming to the end of our deep dive here, and I really feel like we have painted a picture of a superhero whose superpower is also their heaviest burden. It is such a delicate balance.
It really is. The world literally shakes apart without these people. Every family, every single company has one. But the risk of self-consumption is incredibly high for them.
The source material has a conclusion that acts as a bit of a warning, but also a guide. They call it the golden sentence. I think we should just read this verbatim.
I have it right here. This is the ultimate prescription for the AFSN.
Yeah.
When gentle holders learn to confirm boundaries before assuming, letting responsibility not infinitely expand, their gentleness truly becomes the force stabilizing the world, not a reason for continuous self-consumption.
Confirm boundaries before assuming. That is the really hard part, isn't it?
It is the hardest part. It means looking at that falling vase and making a split-second conscious decision, is this my vase to catch?
And sometimes you just have to let it crash.
You do. Because if you fix everything for everyone, nobody learns anything, and you just burn out.
This report comes from the Max Energy ME80 Personality Assessment. It is such a fascinating system. If this resonated with you today, or if you are suddenly realizing, oh my God, I'm completely married to an AFSN, where can people go to dig deeper?
You can find out more at www.maxenergylife.com, or just search Max Energy or Met Energy on Facebook. There is a whole community and a really deep system behind just this one specific profile.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with a thought. If you identified with the gentle holder today, you spend your entire life holding up the world for everyone else. But take a look in the mirror today and ask yourself, who is holding you up?
And for everyone else listening, look around your life. Look at your team at work, your family, who is constantly fixing things you haven't even noticed or broken yet, who is absorbing the shocks so you don't have to feel the bump. Maybe text them today. Just say thank you and ask them how they are actually doing.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.
Take care.